Salutations, neurons. Welcome once more to the Neurotypeline, the only podcast where a handful of guys regurgitate and comment upon the work of others online. Neurotyping is and will remain for the foreseeable future a Japanese colloquialism coined by the epitome of cyberspace gurudom, Digine, for the categorization of semi-erratic bioelectrical signatures perceived in the cognition lumps of humans. Within seconds of the theory's publication, others chimed in with their own ideas of how thinking works, if it indeed does, and we'll talk about those. All information in the universe, apart from that which we say out loud, can be found in the video description. Hey, Tolgi, who are you?
Hello, I'm Torgi. I'm a human calculator. If you're looking for a stereotype of an autistic math nerd, then you'd be right, it's me. Yeah, I'm one of the hosts here, and we'll be looking over some posts again on the Reddit and also talking about two videos we haven't talked about, strangely enough.
Yep. All right, and I, by the way, am the arch's fast-talking craftsman and indestructible super god, the firebrand with inner peace, your level 3 overseer, Tarbuck Transom. How you doing?
I am Ouroborista, I'm a writer, I'm an esthetician, and I'm the inventor of this podcast that Tarbuck Transom is on, to quote Digi.
Great job. And I'm Urcoy, new type. Did you think I would think? You're wrong.
Good. I didn't expect anything less. And we also have a guest to explain MBTI to us this time. Eggsy, protege of neurotyping and patron saint to the quick-witted.
Those are all very cool titles that I'm glad to have.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
We're glad to have you. So, let's just start with that. Here's a post by Crazy J1. Neurotyping has many similarities to MBTI and Jungian Functions. What do those words mean?
So MBTI, as this person very playfully puts it, MTBI, is the Myers-Briggs type indicator.
Oh no, I just misspoke.
The Myers-Briggs indicator.
Yeah.
Oh no, they mistyped. Okay, I didn't do it wrong.
Yeah, every single mention is misspelled and I love it. Basically, there are 4 dichotomies that make up personality, according to them. And those are extroversion, introversion, intuitive sensing, thinking, feeling, and judging and perceiving. Extroversion and introversion is like, do you like going outside? Or to be less cheeky about it, extroversion is they like to go outside, high energy, and introversion is low energy. Sensing is more about facts, whereas intuition is more about
If I can break in right here,
ideas.
This kind of, like, the way that definition is given by Myers-Briggs is probably why there's so much disagreement about what introversion and extroversion is, because that is miles off from the definition I was given. But you're our lens into the context specifically for MBTI and how they talk about it, so go ahead. Don't let me interrupt.
Yeah, so we have extroversion, introversion, sensing, and intuition. And then there's thinking and feeling, where thinking is heart over head versus feeling, which is heart. Well, I messed that up. Thinking is head over heart, and feeling is heart over head. That's pretty self-explanatory. I think those words are used pretty often in speech.
Where is heart on the blade? Monogatari. That's a joke.
And then judging is like someone who will look at schedules a lot and is overall very uptight and kind of a loser. And procrastinating, perceiving, is a procrastinator and someone who tends to not enjoy schedules and some such stuff like that and will tend to go with the flow, as they would put it.
The idea that perceiving is a procrastinator, like... I'm trying to see like a 1-to-1 between those things, and you're gonna have to sell me on it, bro.
Oh, so I think the wordage came from the Jungian functions, where perceiving, all perceivers have an extroverted perceiving function, as they put it, and so perceiving is intuition or sensing, and so if you're perceiving or information gathering function, specifically gathering function, is extroverted, you go and get new information instead of working on the ones you have now. And so that would lead itself to being procrastinatory, because you tend to, rather than build on the project you have now, go start a new one. That would be an example of Ooh, new information.
I see. So if I understand it correctly, then Carl Jung was the Digine of his time.
Yeah, something like that. Although with considerably less anime, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have seen the psychologist guy with functions type 200 anime characters and put them on a chart.
Yeah, I want to see a video where Carl Jung just shits on a bunch of other psychoanalysts.
I would too. That sounds like a riot.
Yeah. Imagine what would he say about neurotyping?
Who would Carl Jung have called a punk ass bitch?
Freud.
Oh, yeah. Good
Yeah.
pick.
So they're basically trying to map this onto neurotyping, it seems.
Yeah, seemingly.
Was it a lie all
So the
along?
correlations they draw, we should probably say that, is that lateral thinking is intuition, linear thinking is therefore sensing, and that lexicality is
The thinking.
thinking, while impressionism is feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
this guy said. Which I think that's the main conclusion you could come to if you were to map anything from MBTI into this, because introversion and extroversion is the one thing Digi really hated, and then judging and perceiving don't really fit either. Although you could argue.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in preparation for this stuff, I did the fucking Myers-Briggs test again, and I did get both a lateral that is intuitive and an impressionist that is feeling result. So seems to work a little bit, but then again, I would be, according to this, more lateral than impressionistic. That is more intuitive than feeling.
Yeah. I think while there might be sort of a general trend, I think you can have a type, like any of these types, anywhere on the chart, in theory.
Yeah. You should have seen me when I was an ENTJ new type.
Oh, God.
That sounds terrifying.
Now-
Real proof.
Now, I do kind of have to ask, as our resident MBTI expert, which I will continue calling you until other people in your life start calling you that. When you
You're going to
hear
ruin my
somebody
social
give
life.
when you hear somebody give the acronym, do you like immediately know exactly what they're talking about?
The acronym for their type?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, generally, when you start talking to people about MBTI, you start having very wrong preconceived notions about types. And as you talk to more people, they become less wrong over time. So if someone
Gotcha.
says they're an ENTP, I know that they're either annoying or they're just unlucky.
All right, so it basically is about, it has the same like trajectory, like in its development of a culture and the culture's continued misunderstanding and recasting of the original theory as neurotyping. So in that way, neurotyping is the perfect sequel to the MBTI.
Yeah, we're already like well on our way to being a real typology.
Yeah, we're already on our way to being also kind of wrong mostly.
Yeah, next thing you know, everyone's going to start calling new types crazy. Oh, wait, that was like a month ago.
I think we did it from the start, actually.
Yeah.
I want to get to the point where someone I know personally who's studying psychology will be able to do their dissertation on this podcast and cite it
Have
as a
to.
resource.
Do you mean want to or have to?
Have to.
When I was a young boy, I remember starring on that podcast. I talked about MBTI, which has nothing to do with
Neurotyping.
the podcast itself.
has absolutely nothing to do with neurotype.
Neurotyping.
It has
All right.
But I'll tell you,
nothing
Sonny,
to do
I
with
played
it.
a part on that.
Well,
I want it to be like the perfectly generic podcast where nowadays people just come on once they've written university papers about Homestuck,
yeah.
which is a thing to
Hashtag
do.
squad goals.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of, everyone has their camera ready?
Oh, yes.
Hold
I'll
on.
pretend I do.
Yeah.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Yeah. That's
pretty
my
good.
that's my every episode shout out to Vic and Hope, which will become actually relevant later in the episode.
Yeah, we'll have more of those this time. What was that?
What was what?
Please stop doing that.
I got a watermelon lime venom here. It is the best tasting energy drink, and it's also a $1.
I'm enjoying my can of gourmet air.
I have a German red beer here, and it's pretty good.
So I feel like you tipped your hand a little bit, but do you think that neurotyping actually is just an expansion on two of the things from MBTI?
I could see it, but it's been associated with more things now that it's really hard to map, because in the beginning I could totally just see, lateral is just intuitive. That was my first thought when I heard it. But now I still think the same thing, just they're not the same exact. Like I could see a sensor lateral now, but it would be a little less difficult than it was back then.
So a little bit like last episode's other 2-axis graph that is actually good, the nebulophilia graph.
Yeah, I think that graph was really fun.
Yeah.
I had no idea what most of those words meant, but I kind of got it.
Yeah.
From all of the things I knew what they meant.
Yeah. So then you got the it's like that in that they kind of cluster together, but they don't actually measure the same thing.
Yeah. One thing I could point to very specifically that was off from the beginning was, so there's the stereotype of the ISFJ, normally called the defender, which lines up almost one-to-one with, as it was called in the video, caretaker or understanding. That was the first, wait, shouldn't lexible be thinker? Why is there a feeler in there? And now, as of now, I can see a lot of self-typed impressionists who are also thinkers, which I find pretty interesting. And people like Kip on the Neurocord have also typed a lot of impressionists as thinking types.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely kind of see the linear the linear sensing, intuitive, lateral thing more. That might very well be a correlation there is strongly.
Yeah. If I may get my own dick out of my mouth for a minute and then cram it with Ouroboristas, I would have to say that Ouroborista is one of the most impressionistic people that I know, and on this level, and also one of the thinkiest boys. So you're breaking stereotypes. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. First of all, I hate the fucking... I don't know what it means, and I don't know anything about the system, but thinking, feeling are the worst fucking labels for the academy. I think I've shat on the whole emotional
I've had a thought.
thing.
I must be a thinker.
Yeah.
That's
exactly
the summary of why no one likes those names.
As I said, I did get a feely type when I just did the quiz, but I don't know. This just feels like, hey, are you kind of empathetic? Empathetic? Yeah or no?
Are you an emotional baby?
Yeah,
You're a thinker.
No, I'm an asshole. This doesn't seem like it would correlate to impressionism or lexicality at all. As much as I want to say that all lexicals are assholes.
Actually, I don't know if you have to say, but the thing is, I don't know actually that much about MBTI. I can just say I got INTP as a test, and also we argued about me being a INTP. I think that's pretty established now. So actually, what would I get now according to this post? Didn't calculate.
If you look at the
true.
meme charts, it would be INTP, and that's the stereotype of human calculator anyway.
Yeah, right. HC and INTP.
I didn't actually say what I got. I got ENFJ when I just did it.
Oh, I'm a prophet.
That sounds right.
I procrastinated from doing my homework, which I guess makes me intuitive? Or no.
Intuitive perceiver.
What was the perceiver? Yeah.
But I also
intuitive
did, perceiver.
Yeah, that's the one.
I also did this test 2 years or so ago, and I got INTJ. So apparently only N and J are static.
Well, would you say you tended to intellectualize?
Very close to the middle on the other two.
Would you say you tended to intellectualize your emotions more when you were younger?
Oh yeah, that was probably a lot more pretentious. That's probably influenced the way I would answer questions.
I was more of a T, I think, when I was younger too. Like INTP was the one I identified with the most. I'm sort of more on the F now, but
okay, but
yeah,
I've heard a lot about this website and the test at all being completely awful and the worst thing to
it's
ever
a Big Five
exist
test.
at all.
Yeah,
That's the one I just took.
That's what I said. Thank you.
I like Big Five. It's nice. I don't know if it's mappable to neurotyping though.
Yeah, I like Big Five because it's based on mathematical things.
Factor analysis,
so
lexical things.
Yeah, we'll also get back to that one later this episode.
Depending on how long you're able to stay, there is a post trying to map neurotyping onto the Big Five later in this episode.
Oh, is it by time take?
Yeah.
That was really fun.
No, that was.
That was something different.
No, we're talking about the neurological substrate one. That is the time cake first.
Oh, that one's so cool.
Yeah, we got me and Exie actually went over it like quite some time ago, and maybe somebody else. Yeah,
I put an equation for finding your neurotype based on Big Five results in neurotyping chat, and everyone was like, "God, this is awful. What have you done?"
yeah, I remember that. I completely forgot about it now that you mentioned it.
I didn't see that. Post that in the voice chat there because you should totally I want to do this on the stream.
I got
also, by the way, the text doesn't fit. By the way, the meme text, but you see the image, right?
Oh, you mean the we're just using what was posted there as the formula?
Oh yeah, basically.
Okay.
Oh no, it's just.
Did we move posts?
We probably shouldn't jump around so much.
Yeah, we didn't finish.
Let's go back to the thing that we're actually talking about.
Yeah.
No, I misunderstood some things you said, so
Actually, what are your thoughts on the thinking to feeling thing being lexical impressionist?
I think that when it comes directly to dichotomies, the intuitives and sensing to lateral and linear make a lot more sense than the thinking and feeling to lexical impressionist. But when you take into account functions, I would say that the thinking functions, particularly introverted thinking, which is all about categorization, fits pretty well with lexical, and introverted feeling fits pretty well with impressionism. But other than that, it doesn't really apply.
So it only maps for introverts. So then...
Well, on the lateral to linear, I would say that extroverted intuition and extroverted sensing only map. So basically what I'm saying is no judging types map to neurotyping at all.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All the judges get out of here. You're not allowed.
I had this thought earlier today, and I was like, "Dang, I feel like a marginalized minority." Brings a tear to the eye.
A lot of that going around lately. There's a. I guess this is a judgment-free zone.
I think that the central idea of this post, which is this guy saying, well, what we can see is that Digi was very close to MBTI despite disregarding it entirely. It's a pretty good idea in my opinion, except that I don't like the MBTI system. But denouncing MBTI without giving a very proper explanation, which is what Digi did, I think, if I remember correctly, was not that helpful.
Kind of, yeah.
Because it just made me compare it to MBTI.
Yeah. She just kind of assumes that you did the homework in the same way that we assume that you have watched all of the Digi videos on this.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Honestly, why would you be watching this if you have not seen the Digi videos?
Because I told you to.
I'm sure all of our presences combined became an internet magnet.
I guess there could be an argument made that, if you want to get people into neurotyping and they only care about all the thinky brain shit, and they would think it's weird if people kept talking about anime the entire time.
Well,
I guess you could make that argument that you should listen to us then. The problem is, we also talk about anime a ton.
Yeah, I mean, less than Digi did, but...
Way less than Digi did.
I don't know. We recommended Nana in one episode.
Yeah. I'm gonna double down on that recommendation for Nana. It is good,
Yeah, watch
even though it's
Nana.
unfinished. Anyway,
Wait, I need to interject with my recommendation to leave my mark on the podcast. Watch Horimiya in winter 2021 because the manga is great, and I hope the anime is too.
right on.
Cool.
I will wait for that and then come back and post in the comments as to whether I thought you were wrong or not.
Yeah, please write an essay
Yeah.
as to why I was wrong.
Yeah,
I'll
please
read
write
it.
comments.
Yeah. Always write an essay.
I will write
on
it
everything.
directly into the spam folder.
Every guest has to give an anime recommendation, and every commenter has to write if they think they were
Did
wrong.
Carada did it in the last one?
Yeah, actually, that's a new rule now. This is law. This is law. Digi said it's my podcast, so I get to make that rule.
Did you said you're on this podcast and you're not gonna be for long?
Yeah.
Okay, but actually, I want to get one thing cleared up. So, you talked about extroverted and introverted thinking. Is that just thinking done by extroverts/introverts?
Well, when you relate the functions to the letters, extroverted thinking is actually done by thinking judgers, while introverted thinking is done by thinking perceivers. And the reason they do
right, because that's the
introverted
kind of
thinking.
bullshit I have heard about.
Oh yeah, the reason they do introverted thinking is that when you have an extroverted perceiving function, which, as I explained before, is why they're so procrastinatory, you can't have an extroverted thinking function, so you have to have an introverted one. That's how the letters line up.
Yeah, but why though?
Oh,
Yeah.
well, they aren't thinking done by introverts or extroverts. It's introversion in the Jungian sense is more self-focused, I think. As Kip would put it, it is the subject versus the object. So introverted thinking reduces while and so that's categorization and stuff like that. And then extroverted thinking expands, kind of like extroverted intuition. So it'll be more focused on productivity, as a lot of memers put it, which is why ISTJ is always stereotyped as a literal bookkeeper.
Right.
I also
Gotcha.
had this analogy I heard for those two at one point. It's not exactly the same thing, but it was basically think of console controllers. So you have plugged wired controllers. Those are the extroverts. You plug them in to, this is more about the social situation, but you plug them in to a social situation and they're on and they're energized and they're always going. But then you take them away, they go back home, they shut down. They just need to be around people. And this has nothing to do with whether
Extroverted
you're
thinking.
shy or not.
Oh yeah.
And then introverted thinking would be the battery controller. They have a certain, they only have so much energy before they're okay, I'm done. Leave me alone, please, God.
Yeah, that mostly applies to the social aspect of introversion and extroversion, which is when you're an introvert,
It's
your
not the whole thing.
first function, your dominant function is introverted. And so you can see the effects of that in an INTP who leads with introverted thinking. But in an ENTP who leads with extroverted intuition, they're going to be relying on that more. And so they would be an extrovert mostly.
Yeah, in terms of personality. But I liked that analogy more because it sort of dismisses the whether you're shy or not, or actually like people or whatever. That doesn't have to do with whether you need social interaction or not compared to other people.
Yeah.
Wait, did I mishear that? Or are different extroverted types differently strongly extrovert depending on the other letter combination?
Well, according to
Typically.
a lot of what people on the internet say about MBTI, types like ENTP and ENFP are less so extroverted than types like ESFP and ESTP. And they attribute it normally to leading with extroverted intuition instead of extroverted sensing, which I guess makes sense. But they also say an ENTJ is going to be very extroverted, as far as I remember, because they lead with extroverted thinking. So I'm not sure why,
Yeah.
but there are different associations.
No, I like that these things influence each other. It ties into the whole circle theory thing which we had with Corrado last episode about how mid-types are probably more the axis they are at the extreme of. So like how impressionists and aestheticians would be more impressionist than pure instincts and new types.
Ah.
Or how fascinators and analysts would be more lateral than new types and human calculators on average.
Does this mean that centrist types get more space because it has to be expanded to a circle, or do we still not get rights?
Yeah, maybe.
Nice.
Maybe that's what happens. I'm not sure.
I'll keep hoping.
I don't want to speak now, even though I should know this, but no, I can't. My head's a bit empty now.
Oof. So if I'm understanding what you're saying about introversion and extroversion in MBTI correctly, then it's like the different blocks, like the different letters are different blocks that attach to one another in like balanced pairs for like a kind of internal balance, but all the blocks are different shapes, so your balance is going to lean one way or the other.
Yeah. So you have a dominant, auxiliary, tertiary, and inferior function in the functions sense. And you have your dominant one, which is the big one. And if that's extroverted, you're an extroverted type. So yeah, you would lean that way. And your tertiary is also extroverted. It's also the third most used. The order I listed them in is the order of use. So that would also help you lean extroverted because your two introverted functions are less used in total.
Gotcha.
Okay. Tabak said at some point that to him class Becting feels like he's being fucked with. This feels like I'm being fucked with.
Now you understand.
Something out there for everyone.
Okay.
So as I was reading this this whole post, it seemed like it was making a pretty solid case. And from what it sounds like from you, who is better read in this subject than person who wrote this, Crazy J1, it sounds like it starts to fall apart, but still kind of is sort of applicable because parts of it are still like. I'm just trying to like get a summarizing gist to our listeners.
So this person did link a Wikipedia page that had cognitive functions on it, but they didn't really talk about it anymore, which is fine, I guess, because the dichotomies do map more. So I guess the point that they're making that maybe Digi was kind of influenced by MBTI is a little credible. And I think that maybe the main message to take away should be don't like think that other typologies suck, because there are valuable things you can take from them and apply to neurotyping. And, you can smash the rocks together and see how they crumble.
Yeah, I mean, we try to say on the show pretty often that the neurotyping system is a small fraction of a person. It's just a very useful fraction of a person.
Yeah. Right. It's like the slice of pizza with all the pepperoni.
Oh, yeah, that's the best one. That's the neurotyping slice.
Yeah.
Neuro slice. What up, neuro slices?
That's the point that Digi.
Let's see.
I think part of the point that Digi was making as a person who has who adopts a lot of different personalities and a lot of different characters, right?
Yeah.
Was that MBTI is stupid in that it focuses on these personalities, which her are really interchangeable and really a thing you can play with more. So she thought a system would be more useful if it relied on cognitive process rather than what you do with it. So I think there's definitely truth to be gleaned from sensing, intuition, thinking, feeling, whatever, because that these things are in your general acting probably speaks to something in your cognitive process maybe. But having it this way around would have appeared to Digi, as someone with her particular predicament, as less useful and kind of wrong-headed.
I would say that MBTI is marketed a lot more about personality because that's what sells. Right. But Jungian functions do focus more on cognitive processes since, if I remember correctly, Jung was like a psychologist and he met people and talked to them about their stuff. So he just wanted to document a framework for your problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, psychologist is, I guess, a fair rendering of the thing that he was, kinda.
Yeah, I don't remember what his
also-
job was. To me, he was just like an unemployed neckbeard, but also a scientist.
Yeah, that's what academia is.
That's what I want to
Yeah.
Yeah, also shouts out to Kip Roy, who was one of the other MBTI experts we might have had on this show, who looked at this post and was like, oh, this isn't actually about Jungian functions. This is stupid and I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. Chad laying out his priorities.
Yeah. And Axie gladly didn't set his standards quite that high.
Yeah, because it's not that hard to explain the dichotomies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You win the guest spot on the show by having lower standards.
Woo.
Right, I mean, I really don't get why he wouldn't do this, because it's fun to shit on things that are dumb and wrong. So you get to do that now.
I thought that he wouldn't want to be on the show because he takes a long time to explain it, his system. It's really funny.
That's not an issue. I
Yeah.
take my time too with everything.
It's been like, what,
so
40 minutes?
you should know that.
Okay, should we move on to the second
Well,
MBTI post?
I've got a
Because
closing
I
note for
think-
this
Oh,
one.
yeah.
Oh yeah,
Which
dude.
is like,
That then.
we talk about how neurotyping constantly is trying to be forced to be a personality system. You just talked about how MBTI basically took the same route of being a description of the way that people think, and then it gets marketed as a personality system. So like at this point, what even is a personality? Like I feel like there's a whole lot of disclaimers of like, well, this is a replacement for a personality, right? Like just in broad. And that kind of leaves me with the question of, no, really, what is even a personality?
Yeah, that's true. A lot of times it'll get fragmented. Like, is this personality or is it like thinking? I think personality is normally attributed to the surface level behaviors, whereas cognition is attributed to the deeper ones. That'd be how I summarize it.
Speaking of personality,
Can I give my explanation of personality?
Yeah.
Okay. So cognition is it's pretty obvious. It's how do you think? And then you can look at others and you see what they do and you think, well, maybe that's how they think. And if you know a person really well, you start being able to predict their behavior, start being able to say, oh, maybe they will do that thing. And from that you will infer back onto how they're probably thinking. Personality is just how you are seen from the outside, how people would model your behavior. With no idea what's behind that, but assumptions about that. So personality is just cognition looking in from the outside, and cognition is just personality from the inside.
Oh, that's a fun way of looking at it.
That kind of gets at the way that I've been thinking about it all day, which is like all of these factors that you might describe as personality, or the things that are being like misblamed for being a personality, things like stuff that you believe in or tendencies that you have, even like behaviors and the ability to perform. All of those things are called like they're accused of being a replacement for a personality, when like it sounds like what a personality is then is just a list of traits about you, in which case that means that, well,
It's a list of perceivable traits.
Yeah. Well, that makes it seem like all of these things that are being called replacement for a personality are actually just smaller fragments of what a person's personality is. And if it seems like a replacement, it's just because it's getting more airtime than that person in particular thinks it deserves.
Yeah, I don't think replacement for personality is a good thing for even a useful criticism of a person. It's just, oh, you care too much about this thing.
Yeah, they're trying. It feels to me like the person who's saying, like, maybe then people would think I have a personality. That's you. That's what you sound like. Maybe the person who's doing that impression and then making that accusation is like just too hung up on that one factor.
Right.
So personality is like kind of extrapolated from a trait because it's what you see from the outside. Or it could be extrapolated from a couple traits that aren't as hidden.
Maybe.
Well,
Yeah.
I noticed on this next post, the enneagram was mentioned here.
Oh,
I know
yeah.
a little bit about
That's
that.
also in the title. Yes.
by
Enneagram is so much better.
Harmony S, Correlations Between Neurotyping, MBTI, and Enneagram.
Oh man. Okay. So as the instant I read that title, I perked up because they mention Enneagram in passing in the previous post, but they don't say anything about it. And so I got really excited when the next one has Enneagram in the title because I'm
And
like,
they don't say much about it either.
Enneagram is like interesting to me.
Yeah, I think it leans more heavily on personality than MBTI does. I
Yeah,
think
but
it does
considerably.
to the point where like the best way to type yourself in this is like, what is your biggest fear? Like what gets at you the
More
most?
like
It's like
biggest flaw, wasn't it? Like, what's your biggest flaw? And
Like,
then
wh-
you choose like
There's
three
there's
things.
different schools of thought on Enneagram and how it's supposed to work because like MBTI, it is a theory that somebody put forward and then a bunch of other people did independent writing on the subject, and so now there's like a diverging scholarship on what this idea was, and it's not owned by anybody anymore.
yeah.
Yeah.
But because it gets at
Public property now.
Yeah.
because it gets at what your flaw is, I feel it's like way more immediately robust.
Interject to say that I have to go.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry
Oh,
about
no.
that. It was a good.
I
Thanks
filibuster.
It's
for-
fine, I think.
Thanks for
I'll
coming
send
on.
it.
Do you want to give like a parting dunk on this other MBTI episode or a post?
MBTI sucks and Enneagram's better. This post says the same thing as the last one, I think.
What about neurotyping?
It's okay too. All right.
Fuck. I want to get him to say it's the best. Well,
Oh, did he?
I think we have another episode title. Neurotyping is okay too.
Neurotyping is okay too.
and MBTI have.
Message him.
Hang on a sec.
Okay. This sucks. I have more notes on this that I wanted to ask Lexi about. Oh well.
What did you write this time?
Send us a .org. Yeah.
Oh, I just
Could have
messaged
said
him
that
too.
After that, but
He'll be.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I like this one more because it talks a lot more about how introversion and extroversion, and by extension the other types, work as this is your neutral mode, and this is the thing you have to put effort in, which is the one you aren't, obviously. And I think that's how neurotyping works too. If you want to present as another type, if you want to have this kind of conversational mode, like the personality mode associated with the cognitive process that is the neurotype, that's also okay. That's the thing that is more effort because it's not what I do naturally. So I like that it just frames these things as not this is something I cannot do, but this is something that is in my neutral mode. So that's neat. And also the thing that Exi kind of brought up earlier, which is that, there's kind of a lot of feeling people in understanding. That's interesting. But sometimes these things map onto each other. And my thought that I had about that today was that maybe there's just a kind of, there are a lot of social archetypes, not as in Jungian archetypes, but just a kind of person in society you can be. And those all have like an associated MBTI type and associated neurotypes, and sometimes those overlap, but if you just scattered those across the two charts, there would still be like individual heat points. There would still be like combinations that occur often together, right?
Yeah.
Because there are just in every culture like certain kinds of people you could be. And obviously everyone's different, everyone has their own quirks, but you're still kind of always a type of person.
Yeah, like there's points that are like the probability of being one type or another, one neurotype or another, is going to be different based on what your type in some other system is, and so it creates this like uneven peaks and valleys, rippling, like the surface of a lake or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Where some areas are more are like more active and other areas are quieter with activity of these people and so it'll look like a complex interference pattern, or like when somebody throws salt on a plate that has sound passing through it, You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. People have a tendency to like clump up in certain places based on the types of person that they are.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there isn't like a smooth, continuous variation, just that it is lumpy instead of perfectly flat.
Yeah. And I mean, this is kind of a tangent, but for a long time I tried to organize lectures on the Neurocode, which would be about other personality systems. So you'd have, obviously neurotyping, you'd have MBTI, enneagram, class spectrum, horoscopes, whatever. Like different ways of categorizing people. And this whole social archetypes that you could be thing kind of plays into that idea that you could find like a minimal amount of typing systems, which if you put them all together, you can fit all these archetypes that exist onto that. So you could construct like a minimal vector space of typing systems to accurately type all the kinds of people.
Holy You know what I think? I think
Layers.
there's still some things that we actually haven't found out yet, and very soon there's like coming new
Oh yeah,
things
I don't
on the
think
way.
that's possible. I don't think there are enough typing systems for
So
that
it
yet,
can't
or at
be
least not
minimal
enough
already
commonly
because we
known
don't
ones.
have one.
How many
complete
typing
one.
systems can we make in our lifetime?
In our lifetime, or
People get on it.
ourselves, or what? Are we all like small digis producing content?
Yeah, we all got to make our own.
I helped a buddy of mine put together a bunch of them to use in tabletop RPGs and stuff like that. And then it just kind of like I walked away, and then the next day when I came back, it was like this big giant list, and I really only look at the first third of it anymore. But like this has been attempted before.
Like, the way you would go about this is you would crowdsource, like, a list of human traits. Like, any trait a person could have that you could think of. And then you throw all these typology systems at it and see which ones can type which one well. Like, there will be things like human traits that don't fit well into neurotyping, that don't fit any particular axis, but they will fit something else. And you will throw typology systems onto that until every one of those human traits is mapped by something. And then you're done.
Gotcha. So kind of like how the Temperaments of the Four Humors has a built-in system to describe intensity and duration of emotional response in a way that like the Big Five does not.
Yeah.
But everything else that the Temperaments of the Four Humors covers is better covered by the Big Five. So you really only need to isolate that one aspect.
Right, and you could even do the writing thing from last episode, which is how good are you at fitting one shape into another, or are you better at discerning if two shapes are the same shape?
Just make sure that when you're trying to do that you don't accidentally bullshit.
Right, yeah, of course.
We should probably do still anyways, because you're not a great literary writer, probably. I'm the probability that you are like as good as a writer as like an author of a book, and you can produce content like a digi and edit like whatever to present it is like very unlikely, and so on and so on.
I mean, Gigi is a decent editor. She just doesn't like doing it.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of things that I'm good at that I hate.
Darn.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Now with the time-sensitive posts basically done, you want to loop back to the top of our list and start going back in chronological order?
Yeah,
sure.
I would do that.
Okay. Brief honorable mention to 4 hours of Digi and company typing various YouTubers. So if you are a type and you want a bunch of recommendations of people who think like you or something like that, watch this entire video, you loser. They're not organized in any way.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of watching it at the live stream. Like when it was live streamed, I was very excited. That whole week was very exciting, actually. So I actually don't have to do that anymore.
I did my time. I got out.
Yeah, it's okay. It is messy,
Yeah.
but yeah.
And then a post that we totally forgot to talk about that's kind of important to me. This would have been the first post in episode 2.
Urcoy, cut this out. No one will check the date. We'll just claim that it's right here in the timeline.
No, I want this in. I want it acknowledged that I like pushed to get it in when it was supposed to happen.
Just re-upload the video with it edited in.
I mean, I feel like what happened from my perspective is exactly what happened in the world at large, which is this video came out and I alone watched it.
I did watch it. I just don't remember the specifics of it.
I mean, did you watch it when it came out though? That's what I'm trying to get at.
No, I didn't.
Yes,
I did not.
Yeah,
I did too.
The entire almost the entire neurotyping whatever, the people who care about neurotyping mostly missed this, and I feel like it has some really important contributions. Like Vic and Hope, in addition to having like the best energy, they kind of pre-discovered what would go on to be heat map theory, but better.
That's a take, certainly. Okay.
Yeah, that's actually a take.
I'm gonna disagree with that later on.
I will disagree with you, and you know it.
Sure. Let's just say what the video says. The video says, okay, people have different modes depending on who they're talking with. And that Digi kind of ignored that, for example, typing her and Vic's parents, typing the way they interacted with the children, right? Rather than how they interact with other people. Same for Vic, same for everyone else. So it's mostly an examination of, well, depending on your context, you act in different ways, and so you have multiple different modes.
Yeah. And like what to me really spoke to me as the core idea being put forth in this video, or at the very least, like it's the diamond surrounded by gold, is that you shift the way that you think specifically to optimize yourself for the situation that you're in, ideally, or you change in some way to respond to your circumstances. And so like the examples are all like fallen out of my head, but like if you need to like buckle down and work on some specific thing and there isn't room for you to just be yourself, then you might shift more linear.
Right. Maybe if you have a job.
Yeah, basically, like if you have a job or something. And this matches my like personal life experience, because I am an overseer, but I definitely spend like when I'm provoked in a particular way, I will like shift and be more like contemplative, and like where I'll actually like start listing things. This is when my internal monologue gets a lot more conversational with myself, and I like am actually thinking out in sentences in my head as I just stare into infinity, trying to like pull apart the thing that has just happened, and I'll like focus on it and chew on it and be impossible to like deter me from thinking about this one thing. Like you can try and get my attention and you'll have it for like a minute tops, but eventually I will just break off in the middle of a sentence and go back to thinking about the thing that I just was. And I feel like this is the pre-discovery of the heat maps, because if you tally all of those up, all of those different contexts, and the amount of time you spend in those contexts, you would get Carla's heat map.
Okay. I disagree.
Long impassioned speech. How about you're wrong?
How about you are wrong? Because that is also how, when heat maps first came up, I kind of envisioned them like, oh, I definitely spent some time in this analyst mode and spent some time in the externalist mode. Like this, those are my like main secondary modes, right? And I thought, okay, so these could be points we could be thinking about. But I think this is the first positive mention of Scroy, who convinced me otherwise, that heat maps work differently, which is that it's like a genuine changing of thought mode that you have, that if you act a different way in a different context, it's actually just your main cognition like essentially simulating how a different type would act. So you act for your environment, but you don't really change how you think. At least for me, I think that's very rarely the case. Like, I can think of how I interact with certain context in a certain context, but if I think back on how I thought in that context, it didn't really change much.
So it's like a computer running a virtual operating system, like another one.
Right.
I mean, there's like, we can talk all day about simulation versus emulation.
It's not a literal operating system. It's like a different personality. It's a way to be perceived, but that can be modeled through a different thought process. So, yeah. Well, maybe. Yeah. I don't know if that's a good metaphor. Maybe it is.
Does everybody here know the difference between a simulation and an emulation?
Yeah, I think I do.
No, I don't.
Okay, so imagine you took Pokemon Red version from 1997 and you remade it in Flash. What you're seeing and what you're interacting with is the same, basically. Like, even the graphics might be different, but it's enough to be the same idea. It's doing the same things, it's achieving the same outcome, basically. But what's going on under the hood is not at all like the way that the original Pokemon cart for Game Boy was running. Like, that's not what was happening. Whereas an emulation is a computer pretending to be a different computer, monitoring where all of its transistors are and what states they're in, and all of that. And so you have the whole thing. It is doing it for real. It is just doing it in virtual space. So if you were to carry the metaphor, if you were to achieve similar behaviors, that's a simulation. If you were to...
Okay, so I'm thinking about a simulation. Urcoy described an emulation. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gotcha. That's a good distinction to make. That's really useful.
Yeah, it's really important if you're talking about like consciousness or something. Like to emulate a brain must give you consciousness because there's nothing about being made of meat that is special. But to simulate a brain, does that give you consciousness? Who knows? Let's. You can't even ask it.
Yeah, so that's what made
consciousness
me
is a glitch.
Yeah.
So that's what made me think about comfort modes, like in the previous post, which was like, okay, these are the things I can do normally, and these are the things I have to put effort into.
Yeah.
So I think Vic is like misunderstanding kind of Digi's system when he says that, our parents are actually not this type because with everyone except for the children, like in their job or so, they act in this way. And I'm like, well, no, your comfortable state would obviously be with people for whom you don't have to put on a facade. You don't have to sell anything. You don't have to be functional, in quotation marks.
That's presuming quite a lot about their relationship to family or anyone's relationship to family, but go on.
Oh, yeah, no, that obviously isn't the case for every family. Yeah. Obviously. Yeah, no, I don't want to imply that at all. Probably not even for most. Like, for most people, their most comfortable context would be outside the family. I would hope. I would hope. But, like, that's probably the most comfortable context of her parents that Digi has access to. Like, I think work would probably be a less comfortable context. And I think, like, the more comfortable the context in which you observe someone, the closer the behavior will match their cognitive mode, because the less walls and shit they will have to put up.
Before I give my rebuttal, what do the rest of the boys think?
I'm not entirely sure yet, so.
Gotcha. Still chewing on it?
Yeah.
That's cool. Tolgi, what about you?
Well, with me, I have to say, actually, like neurotyping, like people on the internet, I think I can do that way better now than I could like at the start. But neurotyping people in real life that you actually know, I think it sounds like weird, but I find it hard to actually do it. I find it hard to actually neurotype, for example, my parents. Like I would just say, my dad is like, I don't know, like contemplative, or like what's the right of it again?
Understanding.
Yeah, understanding. Kind of that, and my mother is just the opposite of that, so externalist, or even clear-sighted. But the thing is, I still am not very sure of it because I don't know what to ask them. The things that you can ask internet people and what you can normally ask your parents isn't like the same.
Yeah, I can see some awkwardness there in like the range of things you can talk about with your parents is going to be smaller than the range of things you can talk about with people in a consequence-free environment.
And also, my parents are like very mode switching when they are at work. So, for example, my dad at work is like for some reason like just different person or something. I feel like he's just a different person. Yeah, that's also one thing. And I partially know him for work, so it's a bit
I also
hard.
think there's like an important transition kind of when you move, like when you live with your parents versus if you aren't, because kind of neurotyping someone accurately requires being able to take them out of the context of your normal existence, like looking at them as like a genuine different object. And I think that becomes way easier if you don't interact with your parents a lot anymore.
Yeah, I don't have that. I
think
live with my
neurotyping your parents becomes way easier if you don't live with your parents anymore. I don't know that because obviously I didn't have neurotyping didn't exist when I lived with my parents.
I'm the first experiment,
it
guys.
feels
Wish
like
me
that
luck.
would be the case.
So kind of more on the Picard side of the Picard versus Batman model of like, are you the total sum of your observed behaviors, or does putting you in extraordinary circumstances reveal your true self? Like,
I think I'm exactly my sum right now.
I haven't heard that.
Oh,
Me
it comes up
neither.
in like tabletop RPGs and stuff like that. And just trying to talk about what alignment means. Is it a tally of your behaviors, or is it an internal force that you get revealed in extraordinary circumstances?
Would the latter be Batman?
The latter is Picard. That comes
Picard,
from Crisis at Farpoint Station, the first episode of Next Generation, I think.
Okay.
The one with Q in it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know that episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not know this dichotomy, but it seems useful. Seems cool.
Yeah.
Like it.
All right, so here's where everything breaks down, because what Vic describes of not just changing your behaviors, but changing your actual mode of thought is what I experience, and that's why this lit me on fire.
Okay.
Yeah, like
Maybe
I
you and
feel
Magic
like
Man
it's-
should talk.
Yeah, it's not just like my mind is pretending to do something else. Like, sure, there are definitely modes of thought where I can kind of sort of put myself in a place that produces similar results, but like that is the stuff that's outside of my scope. It is completely black on my heat map. But there are definitely contexts that I can be in, or like modes of thinking that I can put myself in, where the actual like nuts and bolts, pipes and wiring of how my mind works changes to accommodate that situation and what I'm doing, and I process stuff differently.
Yeah.
Like the way that I process and create new thoughts is different in those moments.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I didn't mean to imply that heat maps aren't real, that you can't have multiple terms for. I just think like acting different in different contexts does not map precisely onto that. I think, especially if you assume a persona for a long time, there are kind of feedback loops. It becomes a fake it till you make it kind of situation, where you pretend the behavior and influence your cognition, and that produces behavior and so on, until at some point that genuinely is a mode of thought you can slip into. I think that is true for some things. I just don't think that is always the case for all the social modes in which you act differently. Because I think if that was the case, people would never be uncomfortable in any situation, because they could just adapt to a mode of thought that would accommodate that situation.
Well, that doesn't mean that people are infinitely flexible. Like, and for that matter, you can, like, you ever hear stories about people who go home for the holidays and they just get ruined? Like, changing your mode of thought contextually doesn't mean that you're changing for the better, just that it's changing.
Oh yeah, no, that's an awful situation that I wouldn't bring anyone. It's horrible and always fucks me up for weeks. Yeah.
Don't go home, kids.
Yeah, never go home.
Never grow up, but also never go home. Circus life forever, never land.
Yeah.
I think, like, just listening to you right there, I feel like now I understand where we diverged. We got fundamentally different understandings out of what Vic was saying. And I think a part of that is because I've watched like 1,000 hours of him talking and you haven't.
Right.
So
yeah.
like, I feel like I'm more in vibe with him, where you got more of a...
That may very well be, yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's not an unfair reading of what he was saying, but I don't think it's what he was trying to say. But that doesn't mean that, like, you don't have a point about the things that you were saying.
Yeah. So, yeah, as I said, I think there's definitely overlap. I think there are modes of thought that you just have additional to yours, and they lead to behaviors that you have additional to your neutral ones. That's a thing that exists. So, yeah, if that's what Vic meant, then I'm fine with it. It's cool. And I do think that's a useful thing to consider. I think it's useful to think about modes which you can emulate, which you can, emulate but not simulate. No, simulate but not emulate.
Right. Yeah, that actually raises an interesting question, because I feel like there's spaces in thinking that I can emulate. There's spaces in thinking that I can simulate. What about the spaces that I can do neither?
Those definitely exist.
Is that like the Jungian shadow? Is like, or am I just like reaching here? Is that like, I want aspects.
I have heard that term
I
before,
get what you're
but
saying.
I just don't know what it means.
Yeah, I want. Well, I guess I'm just like interested in gazing into that void of inaccessible thoughts. That's cool to me.
Well, I have to say, even like Digi is like very incomprehensible to me. Like the even the old videos, I find it very hard to get behind the thought, like to actually like emulate the thought or even simulate it. Like it's very hard to wrap my head around it, and there are very few persons I can actually like get behind it and to actually like get behind. So it's actually like I cope with it. If I mean, that sounds very harsh, but I cope kind of with it, so I can just read it without like trying to get behind the thought, even though that sounds kind of bit of strange, but that's actually what I do. I don't actually want to get behind. I just want to read or get the infos out and to infer and do something with it.
Gotcha.
Huh. I think like part of it is definitely like you first learn, at least for me that's the case, like you first learn to simulate emotive behavior, maybe because of a person you know, like someone whose behavior you have observed for a while, you can know what they would do in a certain situation. Or just for writing characters, like you think about what they would do and you're able to extrapolate their reactions to further things from that. And at some point, if you thought about a person or a character or whatever a lot, you are able to just mimic the thought mode.
Well,
Yeah.
I think I, as a kid, was very eager to just instantly emulate things, and when that didn't go far enough, I was like very, very sad and was crying because I couldn't do it. I was like, oh wait, you're not thinking like me, or what I think of you are thinking does not match. So I'm very sad now. I think yes, I was. So maybe that kind of contributed to it, but after a while, I just got around the other path again, and now I'm doing the normal route
So
again. But
you
I
had
can
like
remember that phase of my childhood.
So you had like an Evangelion moment where the version of the other person in your head is like addressing how that person is actually acting and commenting on it, and you're feeling the contrast between the version in your head and the version in reality.
I mean, that's very easy to just know. If it's just different, you just know that. I mean, I just tried different models like emulating in my head, and then I got sad that it didn't work. Obviously, because you know that you get that very fast.
Yeah.
You get very fast, quick feedback with people, usually.
That's interesting.
It's a crisis of verisimilitude. It's things no longer seeming as though they fit into your version of reality that you have constructed.
Yeah. Cool stuff.
Urcoy, did you have time to consider the question?
Say again?
I asked Urcoy if he had time to consider the question of what is a heat map.
I don't fucking know, dude.
Cool. Okay, it seems like everyone is pretty much done with the video, so I just want to quickly address Digi's comment under it.
What was that?
Oh, yeah.
Which is, I can see most of that. I could see our dad as most of the lower column, but how fucking could you type him as level-headed? Because he reads books and is really into these harshly codified models of thought and lexical modes. Because according to Digi, his dad reads books and is fucking blown away by the idea that ideas and concepts could even be codified into words, could even be broken down like that and presented to him. And it blows his mind. That's why he likes reading. And I have never felt so forgotten. I feel a deep kinship to Digi's dad now. And that's incredible. That's an incredible analysis. Love it.
That's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. How could it be so concise? This is wow. How? Yeah. So yeah, I think if you are a hard impressionist who engages with lexical media, if that is your interaction with it, then congratulations, you typed yourself correctly. It seems, yeah, it's great.
Right on. Yeah. I will give a soft agree to that point. I really love that comment. I feel like overall, as we're looking at the video and this post, you and I kind of didn't totally come to a consensus on what the video even means, but we do kind of vaguely agree with each other's points.
Yeah, I could definitely believe that that's what Vic meant. I 100% believe that you would have a better grasp on that. So
I'm not even necessarily saying that I understand him correctly, just that's what I got off of it.
Oh, yeah, I mean, the author's fucking dead. Who cares what he meant?
Well, I'm going to ask him about it after the episode. I'm in his patron Discord.
Oh, right, yeah.
Okay, the author is apparently being captured in Tabak's hands.
I'm actually going to send this episode to them when it comes out, so to fish for compliments, because I'm vain and I like it when Senpai notices me.
Yeah. Okay, hey, Vic, you're a cool guy. This video is great. I'm gonna watch more of your stuff now. So, cheers.
Excellent. All right.
I
feel like I
sprayed beer onto my monitor.
I feel like I spent half an hour talking up that video, but it's just it's cool to see some people who I trust specifically at thinking, and they come to a full and interesting understanding of something else that I've already been thinking about, and then I just trip over it. That's awesome.
Also ask Vic if he wants to be on the show.
Yeah, Vic or Hope, do you guys want to be on the show? That would be cool.
Yeah.
My internet is dying.
Definitely.
It'd be a great honor for us all.
Probably Hope would be even better because we don't have enough lexical people here. So.
Yeah, I'm the only one. Me missing episode 3 apparently upset some viewers or listeners.
Oh, I mean, we didn't talk about that much, but Axie, who was, I guess, for the first bit, is in the Discord the patron saint of saint of quick-witted. So if you think you might be quick-witted or have any question about your typing, ask Exy. Exy is a cool guy.
Exy is a cool. Can confirm. All right.
Okay, do we want to move on to the intellectual?
The intellectual.
Would it be correct to say that lexical thought is reasoning to conclusion and impressionistic thought is conclusion to reasoning?
Fuck no.
This is a post inspired by Blind Deaf Mute. That villain. That scoundrel. That
villain.
No good charlatan. No, this post is fine, actually.
Scruffy looking nerf herder.
It's still wrong. So this is still the damage that Blind Deaf Mute caused.
Yeah, I don't think I would call it decent. Actually, I just go for it. I still don't like it. Absolutely don't.
I want Tabak to go first because I feel like he'll have the less controversial in the context of the show take on it.
Yeah, we can think twice on our...
Okay. If reasoning to conclusion were actually how it works, then Lexi's would actually be the master race. But don't worry, kids. They're just as backwards as the rest of us. They're just better able to phrase their post hoc constructed conclusions. Man, I kind of hate this post for the idea that lexical people would be like immune to biasing and like conclusion first reasoning. Like, I wish that were the case, because then at least there would be some people who are free of like what I consider to be the greatest threat to freedom and free thought and goodness, the virulence flowing through all of our veins, corrupting us and sinking us into the muck. The conclusion first reasoning, the post hoc justification. It is my constant immortal bane. It is the force of gravity that you struggle against but will inevitably crush you down as you realize that, no, actually, even when it comes to yourself, you have to really strain yourself to go from premises to a conclusion, not the other way around. Ugh. Like, okay. I can kind of get the idea of assuming that about the other side if you don't spend that much time with the other side, but like, I do, and that's not how it is.
Okay, that's my controversial take. Like, most people in the comments kind of debunk this, being like, well, no, you're confusing having like a solid bottom up, or you're confusing going conclusion to rationale with having a conclusion and then in retrospect being forced to lexicalize how you got there. So no, everyone goes from presuppositions or from the reasoning to conclusion. But I think this guy has a point.
Oh boy.
Which is that like the conclusion is the big pattern. It's the thing you get. Like, that's all the stuff you took in, put into one. And the reasoning is all the things you got, is the trends you notice within reality. Like, small little trends that you add up to a big thing. And, like, the thing saying that, oh, this is just negating cognitive bias for lexicals is saying that your reasoning corresponds well, even, to a thing that exists in reality. And I think it isn't. I think for lexicals, it's more of a, okay, we notice these small little categorized trends, and then we build a conclusion from that, so the error was early on. And for impressionists, it's more of, oh, we have a wild set of data and don't try to categorize trends early on. And then the main thrust of through all that data, the big picture trend, is the conclusion. So both have cognitive bias and trying to draw a trend line for any of that. But for some, it's in the early, like, small parts, and those all stack together. And for some, it's like not forming small parts and then having a conclusion where only the trend line emerges, and then trying to, when you have that big trend line, trying to reason back to smaller trend lines which make it up. So I think that's one way in which you can interpret what he's saying as true.
So are you saying that since the reasoning follows the conclusion for impressionistic people, that you start with the thing and then you justify it afterwards, but the justification is still like actual? Are you saying that like Preci's pierced the noumenal veil into the actual world?
No, that's not at all what I'm saying.
Okay. Because it sounded kind of like that.
No, actually,
what I'm
no.
saying is that they have the same amount of cognitive bias because, okay, let's imagine a graph, not a graph, some two-axis systems, and it has a bunch of points strewn about in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
What an impressionist would do be just look at that whole field and be like, oh, there's a trend line. Draw it through. Like, you don't know if that's all the information that exists. That's all the information that is available to you. And your perception of what a trend would be is also colored by your cognition in general. So it's incredibly biased. It's bullshit. But you drew a trend line. That's the result. And then you can break down all these data points into small subsections, which is like the actual types of things that lead to the conclusion, and then draw trend lines through that, which add up to that. Whereas for lexical, it would be, at first, you categorize all these experiments you have had into small groupings, into types of events, draw trend lines through those, which are biased, and then add them up to lead to conclusions from these types of events and their outcomes which exist. And you would then come to a conclusion which is based on like solid data, but that solid data isn't shaky ground, whereas for impressionists it would be a shaky conclusion from solid data.
I feel like of the lexical people that I know, that what you described there is more likely to be the case of any given lexical person, but there's still people who start from a conclusion and then just lexically justify it to, in quotes, rediscover or what the conclusion that they've already decided is the case.
Yeah, I think these are trends. I don't think this is necessarily what you do.
Okay. Yeah, because I definitely know that there are a couple of people who do more of that, and like I think the reason that I do that at all is just from sheer exposure to that sort of thought process on the regular.
Yeah.
But
okay, again, phrase definitely, like, I think the cumulative error is the same for everyone. It's just at what point of the cognitive process the extrapolation comes in. Which is, I think, early for lexicals to have small, confined trends over sensible data sets to add up. And for Preci's, it's late on. And therefore, like, a worse extrapolation, but with less cumulative error before that.
Well, I think about, like, your eyes are closed, and then you suddenly take a flashbulb, like a reverse blink, where you open your eyes for a flash, and then you close them again, and a picture just resolves in your mind. Like, you take a sudden flashbulb like that, and you construct an image out of it. And that's kind of done impressionistically. But that doesn't mean that there isn't reasoning taking place in that process. Like, This is one of the foundational things that Digi said, is that you're still going from data input to conclusion, and then supporting reasoning comes afterwards.
Right.
And that's not any less true whether you're a lexical person, unless you're also an alien.
Yeah.
And
okay.
It just seems like difficult to reconcile what I just said with what you just said.
I don't think it's that difficult. I don't even think we disagree that much, honestly.
It's compatible.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, I disagree with this fundamentally because it presumes an external reality, which I don't believe in.
That line of
if we take that for granted, then I think that everyone's cognition, everyone's reasoning, thought process starts somewhere in the middle between input and conclusion, because you cannot actually look at the input. What you're starting with is your sensation of the input, your idea of it, which does not reflect external reality. So there will always be already a break. And then the question is only at what point do you draw a trend line through the accumulation of sensations of reality, maybe if it's out there you have.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely reality and conclusion are outside of that scope, but at any point in there can be the trend line drawing process in the reasoning, which is the one at which a cognitive fallacy of any kind would come in. And I think that tends to be earlier for lexicals and tends to be later for impressionists, but the overall error will be the same.
I feel like that doesn't explain all of the highly educated, highly lexical people that I've known who, when presented with new information, will hold up their pre-held conclusion. Will hold up their previously held conclusion to this new data and as a filter, and then retrofit from their conclusion what the explanation of this new data must be, regardless of whether it's contradictory or not.
I'm not saying that everyone, that lexicals kind of project their preconceived notions of any kind of subsections of the data set onto it and then go from there. I'm saying that they would, and this is different in scientific research because scientific research isn't like your normal thought process. You're trying to be rigorous. I think you just follow a standard model that you aren't doing this thing you would do with your normal trying to interpret the world around you thought process, right? But for that, I think that people would just I'm trying to
let me try a different question,
example.
Maybe.
Okay, yeah.
How is it that you're not saying that categorical people are more thinking along the lines of the scientific method?
What?
Is that
Please.
not what you're saying? Are you not saying that
I'm not saying
categorical people think according to the scientific method?
I'm not saying that, no.
Okay, because that didn't get across to me at any point.
Okay, so let's do the most vague fucking bullshit example. A lexical and impressionist person think about what reality is like. I think a lexical person would start with, well, this is how this kind of thing in reality is like, this is how this kind of thing in reality is like, and they add that up for all the types of things that exist in reality. Whereas an impressionist person would be like, oh, here's a fucking bullshitty trend line through which all things are like, which obviously doesn't make sense because different types of things correspond to different rule sets, so it will be a worse correlation, but through all the data, whereas lexicals, through the cumulative error, through all these kind of small approximations, will end up with the same total error over their approximation again over what all of reality is like. And I think that's not for every topic.
I think the reason that I hate this take so much is that this is normally the kind of thing that you and I would join forces in dunking on, of the reductive all types are really the same, all types and all people are really the same, and it all boils down to an interchangeable amount of deviation from the norm. And
first of all, I don't think that's what I'm saying.
No, but that's what you're... I mean, that's not what you're saying, but that's what you're saying. And
right. And second of all, I already established that I disagree with any of this calculus because it presupposes that there is an external reality we could all draw from.
Yeah.
So I don't think there is a cumulative error from that because well, your reality is your perception of it, and well, so there's no error.
Well, man, a big part of my problem here is that, like, to pre-decide what your conclusion is and then make up reasoning to bullshit justify it is the human disease. That's the true humanity there that we have to get past if we're going to survive. And saying that like half the chart doesn't do that seems like too optimistic to me.
No, I just said that half the chart also does that. They just do it at a smaller level, like for the small subject sections of an idea.
I guess. Maybe I'm just out
Like
of it.
they just,
you know what it is?
They
You know
are
what
just
it is?
less comfortable with big conclusions without having drawn smaller conclusions previously.
I figured out where I'm going wrong.
Okay.
All right. I finally hit the music, and the music is that I do not have enough liquid smart in my system.
Incredible.
All right.
Okay, I've got a gap in my internet.
So,
this must end right now. Did you guys look at the picture I posted?
Oh yeah.
oh yeah,
I did.
Oh yeah, this was
I've been
just
staring at that for a while.
just a short thing I'd made a while ago. I don't know if it's
really love this. We got a complaint from cohort and supporter of the Arch, my creative organization, not a vampire, who said, "Man, it's really difficult to listen to you guys in audio only form when you guys talk about pictures. So let's describe what this picture is."
Right. Okay. So on the top we have lexical versus impressionist. On the top, lexical, we have a word. Doesn't matter what the word is.
The word.
Yeah. And then going to the right, there's an orange field that develops underneath this word. But for the impressionist, it starts with the orange field first, and then the word is developed on top of that. This is just sort of to get at the
Basically, it's an outline.
of which direction you go from.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically an outline, so background.
And this is good and true.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a very good pick. It's very it codifies like the whole thing like in one image and very simple. Simply.
And it also explains very well the frustration that both lexicals and impressionists would have with language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you never reach the end stage and just have to communicate with the first stage.
No, I mean, you get across the word with orange background, and if you're lexical, you'll be like, no, this isn't the context I implied for this word. This isn't that. And for the impressionist would be like, no, it isn't the context implied by this word. It is only the context which I ascribed to this word. Like, for neither of them, the cognitive process, the thing they were trying to communicate, is the thing they ended up communicating. And they would be frustrated in very different ways.
Yeah. And so if I were to elaborate on this, if you were to start with like a yellow blob and then an arrow that result in an orange blob with a word in it, and separately have a different impressionistic person who starts with a red blob and an arrow and an orange blob with a word in it, that's kind of what Oro and I are on about in this disagreement, because if we are on a different vibe from each other, there's a chance that that's irreconcilable.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it leads to the just like the interference pattern that you just saw of orbiting each other forever.
How long did that last? Like 10, 20 minutes? I don't even know.
I felt like it was 20 minutes. And now in retrospect, I want to die.
This is why we can't have a
long.
90-minute podcast. Oh my god.
This is why we can't have an.
I wanted to defend this guy because I think there's like some amount of truth to it. I'm not even sure that's the truth he meant by it. I just think there is something to this idea, whether he meant it or not.
I can think that there's like I feel like you've gotten something else out of this than than he even meant himself. And I think the thing that you did get out of it is more accurate. That's what it is. That's what it is. Like, I haven't truly figured it out now.
Cool.
I did need more liquid smart juice. What happened is, I think you got an impression off of his text here, and then you developed it yourself. And I'm just responding to what the guy was actually saying, which is way dumber than what you turned it into.
Yeah, I mean, if you take this as at the direct level of, it's reasoning to conclusion versus conclusion to reasoning, then yeah, it's stupid. It's just when you take my context into, okay, well, reasoning doesn't start from the this is real, it starts from my bullshit understanding of what is real, then both of these have the fallacy already baked in. And then it's a question of, well, where do you bake it in?
Yeah, well, yes, but I also feel like you're bringing in a lot of extra stuff. But this has been 20 minutes now. I want to give kudos to somebody in the comments for saying categorical and how much categorical is better than lexical, which I'm going to upvote. And now I have spoken my piece. I'm shutting up.
Yeah, I mean, we already had that already with Axie, who also explained one of the dichotomies of MBTI with categorical. It's just the better word. People start using it.
Yes.
Goddamn.
Yes, please.
And also, I'm going to start saying impression because it sounds way better than saying impressionist every time. It sounds very cute. I like it.
All right. Do we have any drug doers in this episode?
No, exactly not. That's why I felt very bad like talking about this. My note is literally I don't know anything about drugs. What the fuck? I'm sorry.
Well, I have on occasions done a drug. I have been known to have done a drug.
Okay.
Dude, we really should have gotten Escalator in on this one. The dude who like...
Yeah, also, by the way, you can know this, but I was actually with Escalator in the voice chat earlier, and we made this next Reddit post a copy pasta now.
Nice. We should post an image of the copy pasta as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's literally just text. We just textified it.
I guess.
Copy pasted.
Okay. This person, Farasimo, describes their experience on the devil's letters, marijuana, as moving from lower left externalist to lower right overseer, or even into aesthetician. And they then talked to a technician friend who said that it made them even more lexical. And also more lateral, which they both did. So probably like into lower human calculator or into human calculator proper.
So if one step is 1/4 of a square, then they moved like 2 steps to the left and then 4 steps up, something like that. And they both describe that in like ways that I had to, or not left, just twice as far up as they went out from the middle. And this gets to my theory, which is that it moves you away from center and towards lateral. Based on these descriptions and based on the comments that were left, that's what it seems to be. It pushes you up and out.
On the glass elevator.
Up and out on the glass elevator, yeah. So, like, if you were just slightly right of center, then you would be pushed more impressionist and then more lateral from wherever you started, regardless of where you started.
This feels like you could write a really funny scenario where 2 people right in the middle, one slightly leaning one way and the other, they both, like, do weed and then start disagreeing with each other really hard.
Yeah.
And start getting mad at each other.
That would be great. Yeah.
So my take is that it just it makes the tether that holds you to your standard neurotype longer. Like you change the chemical balance in your brain, so you just assume a different type, and what that type will be is highly dependent on what you expect the experience to be, which for most people would probably be more lateral, more tapping into whatever bullshit. So you just have given by the substance ability to shift somewhere, and you can essentially decide where it is that you want to shift.
Mm-hmm. And this is specifically talking about the ganja, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Correctly. Yeah, that's the only one for which I can confidently make that take somewhat. Mm-hmm. And I also think that for most drugs, there is a possibility that it just puts your personality, your externally presented type, closer to your actual position because it lowers inhibition. It's just, I stop putting up these usual barriers between my usual cognition and how I present as. So I think for some people, it just moves them closer to where they actually are as opposed to what they're trying to present to fit in somehow.
Okay. I don't have enough experience with with the chronic to make any particular comment on that. Like I don't have enough experience to draw a trend line, you know? I can confirm that it seems like you get what you expect a little, I guess.
Yeah.
That seems to be the consensus of the people that I talk to. So I'll just defer to your expertise, I guess.
Gotta do more green fruit roll-ups, dude.
It can't really be called expertise. It's only like a few, I think 3 at this point. No, 4.
Yeah, episode 4, yes.
With the Devil's Lettuce.
Gotcha.
But I also want to talk about this is kind of interesting in general, in that this is the first coming up of the idea that your chemical balance of your brain, be that through drugs, be that through time of day, melatonin, etc., influences your neurotype. That's the first time that comes up. So
in explicit terms,
it posed the interesting question of what shifts you where. Digi later herself pointed out how, like, during the day, her type kind of shifts around, which makes sense. Like, that's very relatable to me, like how tired you are, how long you've been awake, your neurotype shifts, and also how substances shift your neurotype. Like, for me, the experience is that through the day, I become more lateral, and alcohol shifts me down, for example, and maybe a little to the left.
I had a soft theory that focus-based drugs would push you down because you're like linearizing your thought if it works, but I've also never taken one, so that's just me talking out of my ass. Maybe hallucinogens push you to the right because impressionism is pretty colors. I don't know. It seems like it would go that way. Get a stoner to confirm.
Subscribe to the Neurotypeline Patreon for the bonus episode where we all do hella drugs and describe our neurotype changes.
That bender will be fueled by your first month's Patreon, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, actually, yeah, I've actually never taken drugs, so I've actually no idea what to talk about this post. But actually, I'm not even eager to find out, so I won't even take drugs for this test.
Gotcha.
Also, nicotine shifts your lexical. That's also
that matches.
Oh, damn! That means I can get lexicality overdrive or what?
Maybe. Maybe you integer overflow. Maybe you chart loop into impressionism.
Oh crap! Wait, would be then? Yeah, okay, underflow depending on which axis you take. But yeah.
Well, as with a lot of things, it seems like we're speaking in generalities with this anyway. Like if you have a particularly specific brain chemistry, it might do something weird to you, and that's why you integer overflow.
Yes.
Hey, guess what? It could be that it won't be even the same effects like after each time. Maybe, just maybe, could be that you aren't always the same neurotype after you got drugs taken into. Maybe sometimes you just are a different type. I don't know. It could maybe happen. Yeah. So I know I mean this sarcastically. So I don't think like you get the same result out every time. So
Mhm.
saying like this, yeah, this shifts you exactly like this if you're standing here. This is like a bit yeah, it smells kind of bush. And but I would be interested in like an actual like semi-serious like analysis like like here we
Yeah.
have like 1,000 neurotypers here, and now you also take this experimental drug and we see how you do afterwards.
Maybe that should be the episode that we have Dejune herself come on for, because like who do we know who knows lots about neurotyping but also has done drugs of various kinds? Like if we do a drug episode or like a drug minisode or something like that, I would be really keen to know, for example, if you get high, do you always come down in the same place? Like do you land in the same spot that you launched from? Because that's one of my worries, and that's why I'm kind of a teetotaler, and the only drug that I really do is liquid smart.
Well, actually, I don't know about this, but is actually did you like up to date with the neurotyping and status quo,
Not
like
even
what we've
slightly.
done so far? Yeah, not even
Nope.
slightly. So that would be also interesting to have her
Yeah.
That'd be funny.
sometime on.
It's like defrosting a cave woman.
Defrosting time cake, yes.
Yeah.
I wonder how time cake's doing.
Hmm.
I mean, he's on the server, even the new one, so can't be like that inactive. He was even active like online like recently.
Yeah. Like he has always been only active in spurts. So
I feel like whichever, like when the only drug that I really have to talk about is caffeine, and I feel like it put, like, in terms of lateral versus linear, it pushes me more in whatever direction I'm trying to go in as I imbibe more caffeine. So if I'm wanting to be more lateral and I like slam an energy drink, then I will achieve that. And if I want to be more like linear and focused, then I will achieve that instead. But I think in both cases, they kind of push me left, like towards the categorical.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Well, actually, I think for me it's like a bit different. Like I feel like the chocolate I'm eating is like giving me like +5 laterality points because you know my drive is going a bit more crazy. But for some reason I can like focus a bit more because you know I have like sweet stuff in my mouth and I have like a bit of energy, so I can actually like do something and focus on something. Like that extra energy is just for reserving energy to actually focus myself to do some things.
Gotcha.
As weird as that might sound, but I think that's what's going on.
Okay, here's a theory that's purely based on anecdotal evidence. I think caffeine also shifts me lateral, maybe. But that's also only based on the idea that, as I said, like through my day, I start being pretty linear and move up in laterality the longer I am awake, which for me is usually longer than probably for most people.
Do you want to make that the audience interaction for the episode? Tell us in the comments whether you follow a similar trajectory or a different one throughout the day. That would be cool.
Yeah, we gotta make you like write comments because there aren't actually that many comments as we expected to. With like, what do we have, like 370 views on the first one and only 10 comments?
Oh
That's
yeah,
a bit
also
disappointing.
subscribe.
Yeah.
You have to tell people to subscribe. Subscribe right
Yeah,
now.
I mean,
tab back over and hit subscribe, please.
okay, subscribing is not that necessary, but it would be nice if you leave a comment. I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, helps for the algorithm, and also we like to hear the things you think about.
Yeah, right. I already responded to people and some of the things. So yeah, leave comments. It's a small enough number that we could easily respond to interesting things.
We could even get you on the podcast if we try to.
Yeah. Also, just join the Discord. You can talk to us. This is a small show. Yeah. So my experience is mostly that caffeine just makes me more functional. But my theory on that is that it's just because I start the day out very low on the laterality side, and the aesthetician mode is the one in which I am comfortable operating. So if it shifts me up into that, then caffeine just makes me more functional. And the same with alcohol, which I usually imbibe later in the evening when I have become more natural than I am comfortable with, to shift me back down into the mode I'm comfortable operating. So that's what I think those things do. Maybe they just make me more functional. Well, my experience with them is that they make me more functional, but I think that is because they shift me back to the mode I am comfortable in, which is up for caffeine, down for alcohol.
I think we have to give you a new nickname, laterality manipulator, something like that.
Yeah.
This is making me think. This is probably one of the troubles with trying to type yourself, is if you're changing throughout the day or even throughout a week. Like if you have a job, you're working on that job 5 days, but then on the weekends you're not. You're doing whatever you want. And I have had a lot of trouble trying to get super precise, although that's not entirely necessary. I just like getting super precise. But yeah, I think about it differently throughout one day.
So we are kind of done with this, right?
Oh yeah, I think this might...
Next post?
I said all my parts.
Yeah, the next one was the first MBTI one, so we'd skip over to the time. Right?
Wait, isn't that like still lateral with linear thinking? Wasn't this one?
Yeah. A similar name, lateral with linear thinking. What does this actually mean to you?
Yeah.
Actual being fully capitalized.
Summoner name.
We put this one on here because, well, the first post on the first episode was lexical versus impressionist, and we talked a lot about that.
Yeah, we talked about this before. Yeah.
Even though we've talked a lot about linear and lateral, I don't think we've solidified it in the same way that we have with lexical and impressionist. We haven't left as big of an impression.
Oh, wait. Sorry, I have to go back to the first post for a sec, because I forgot to talk about Gundam Chow, who is now typed as a clear-sided, but described their experience as shifting up into fascinating. The important part is that in their description of themselves, they bring up that they are a highly lexical person. So probably type switched at some point from being whatever they typed themselves previously to being clear-sided, which is also interesting. Like, a thing to keep in mind for the comments is that sometimes people didn't type themselves correctly.
Yeah.
So congrats on this guy for his highly lexical to clear-sided journey. And it also supports our idea of, Tabak's idea of mainly shifting up through the devil's lettuce.
Yes.
Illicit Asiatic weeds.
So if this person has been, had originally typed themselves wrong, then my theory is correct. But if this person had originally typed themselves correctly and then evolved over time, either their puff on the purple haze was a glimpse of their future self, or it was like a moment of like pre-future evolution. That's what I'm going with. Yeah.
Revolution.
Or my theory is just totally wrong, and actually it only moves you upwards in a random direction. That's also possible.
Or it was my thing that it moved them closer to the actual type, and they were like, oh fuck, I'm a purple column guy, and they didn't have enough of a grasp on what laterality means for the purple column to type themselves correctly then. So
yeah, that's
also an idea. Who knows?
Another theory is that we don't know what we're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Hey, what was your name? Gundam Chow, call into the show to tell us about your journey.
Yeah, please do.
Okay.
All right, back to lateral versus linear. Yeah. This is the last hurrah of lateral equals smart, linear equals dumb.
Yeah.
Wait,
if you believe that lateral is smart, you aren't that lateral. Smart, sorry.
Wait, hold on. Was it this post that we were talking about being the last one?
We have been talking about this idea, but
it's not literally the last one, but I do sense a change in the winds of like now the general public is starting to get fed up with the idea because there's been enough discussion about what linearity and laterality actually are, and so like the community is getting steadily more and more against lateral equals smart. So we've kind of turned the corner on that, and it's all downhill from here for people who think that.
Yes, I already got that, so that's very nice. By the way, for the viewers, a good explanation. Now, Aura did like a question to ask, like if you like should include this exact post, a certain post, if you should include that, because there was already like a linear laterality post, like wagering what does this actually mean, and this is done linear is done lateral is smart, and so on and so on. I didn't think that it was actually this post. I thought it was something different, but Aurora, is this?
Yeah, we had a bunch of posts that kind of implied that lateral is smart. It wasn't this one, and this one is more comprehensive. Like this has tons of comments, and most people discredit the idea. Like this is a post asking about, well, I assumed that lateral meant these things, but a lot of people seem to interpret it as just being intelligent. Mm-hmm. And so this really seems like, as Tabak said, like the turning point where it was put to death by the community.
I think the only note that I had was a disadvantage to laterality that is not brought up too much is sort of this idea of irrelevant information. Like they have a lot more irrelevant information, and they focus on that stuff when they really don't need to.
That makes total sense. Completely jives with the people I know who I have typed against their will. Yeah,
I'm thinking about
I feel
the
like
relationship between
that point needs more stress.
Like me, yeah, like the relationship between me and my cousin, for example. Mm-hmm. I think he's like level-headed, and often arguments that we have, like when playing a game, for example, is like I'm the one who's like obsessing over like sorting everything when he's like going off and like getting things done.
Yeah, that treads pretty heavily on the thing that I really want to say about like my final beat down on this idea that lateral equals smart is that's an idea like not in neurotyping terms, but that archetype idea has changed dramatically over time and generations, because there was once a time when it was thought that being linear was very smart, and I mean this is in like the 60s. Yeah. Where highly lateral people were thought of as like being too spacey and like head in the clouds and therefore stupid because you can't like focus on what's in front of you and you can't accomplish anything, and that real intelligence produces diligence and focus. That was the stereotype of what an intelligent person was for a very long time, and things have just shifted as culture has shifted.
Yeah, I read that note of yours and was like, yeah, that's the cultural shift the term smart has undergone. Mm-hmm. Because previously it was smart means functional. You're cool, you're able to do shit and able to succeed in society. And IQ killed that. Because under IQ, smart means being good at IQ test, which requires a somewhat kind of lateral thinking that is testing out a lot of possibilities at the same time, which isn't useful to you usually.
And thinking more in abstractions. Mm-hmm. And the internet itself, too, is like very much good for cultivating laterality, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Read Hello from the Wild by NIX.
My last point on this post is a response to the comments where Vlader 997 talks about like the Digi described. Yeah, that's Geo, another person whom I considered being on the podcast for this episode because it's a really cool comment. So shouts out to Geo. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
the thing that stuck out the most to me is the idea that like that Digi talked about initially of being a highly lateral person also means like bodily disassociation and viewing yourself in like sketchy terms, and maybe you don't even recognize yourself in the mirror. And I think that with the benefit of hindsight, we might say that maybe that's positively correlated, but you know, it seems a whole lot like there was a lot of Digi's personal issues and like things that are Digi specific that she just generalized out of her like, well, this, I am highly lateral and it is this way for me, therefore it is probably this way for lots of highly lateral people.
Yeah. Wait, Urcoy, this is 6 months ago. Had Geo come out as trans at that point?
Maybe not. I don't remember.
I think also not. I think it's very early before that. Yeah. So I think this is also part of that questioning process for her.
Okay, yeah, that's
this comment.
That's a good point to bring up.
But yeah, I kind of understand this idea of like a cognitive dysphoria that would be more common to more lateral people, because laterality requires a greater amount of like metacognition, of keeping track of all your thought processes and even identities you have constructed. You have more of a straightforward vision of this is I and this is what I'm doing. And yeah, so I think that laterality somewhat lends itself to dysphoria in general. I don't think it is necessarily body dysphoria.
Yeah, I'll give a soft agree to that. I feel like in my particular case, it's gone the complete opposite way in that I over-identify with stuff. Like I feel like my phone and my tools and stuff are all parts of me in the same way that my arms and legs are.
Yeah, my limbs are, exactly.
Yeah.
You're just ways for myself to interact with the physical world.
Yeah, I am a distributed person across all of my stuff. And
I am Iron Man.
Enclosed cognition, and my shoes are actually a replacement for my feet. They're more functional feet, and like all that kind of stuff.
I would give a hard agree to that. Hard agree.
Yeah. Transhumanism now.
Well,
no.
Yeah. No, not really.
Well,
I don't think it's that early. You're getting there.
Another time. Another day.
Maybe another day. Maybe on the next episode.
That's too long a discussion for this podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, actually, now I can just make my point, right? You made your point.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So I want to end this on actually two notes. Actually, now that I think about, is actually one is actually like material truth or material reality we have, is that actually almost nobody is typing themselves on the very lowest row. The thing is, this is a bit bad, but because we have we have like different rows now, row system, so I can't like immediately now see how many people have typed, who's, but we know from like earlier statistics that there are very, very, very few people in the last row. I think that it's even the most low row because it's the lowest row, and even like pure instinct. No, I think bookkeeper and pure instinct we have like none of them practically, so that's a bit bad. So material reality says there's actually nobody typing this on the lowest row, and that's kind of a problem because that kind of feeds the rhetoric that there aren't like that many people there, and like everybody's let, and then therefore everybody is being a certain way.
Yeah, I mean that's another thing being somewhat correlated with intelligence in people's mind, and they want to be portrayed as intelligent.
Exactly.
There will be a note on screen if I'm wrong about this. I will actually ask about it later, but I think also very few people type themselves as sensing in MBTI, from what I've seen, because also intuitive is somewhat associated with intelligence.
See, I would have thought about it the other way when it seems like because the description that I read for intuitive was like unconscious or subconscious, and I don't think that most impressionistic people would want to be called unconscious because of it. So it seemed like I would have assumed that sensing is the more attractive one because that way you're actually interacting with stuff as opposed to just like being on autopilot and coasting through your life. But that was before we actually talked about what any of those factors mean, which I have now forgotten because MBTI bounces off of me.
Right. No, same. To quote myself, like, subconscious, anti-conscious, I have reached anti-conscious levels of devotion from my own thought process.
We're also, by the way, to be honest, like before, like we got into like the server, I was also thinking, yeah, I don't know, neurotypes kind of sound like unconscious people to me. I mean, how they even like eat, like prepare food or whatever. They can only think I like crazy people. But again, I also had like the image of myself like being literally a calculator and so. That was like first day stuff, so that pretty quickly like drowned.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So-
that's the excited mind.
In summary,
like-
everyone wants to think of themselves as smart and everyone is wrong.
Exactly. That's what I thought. But it was also wrong too, on top of that.
Except for me, obviously, because I'm smart.
Yeah, you're the best person, that's why. You think the good things.
Thank you for recognizing that I am the best person. So much so that we were on the same wavelength that I knew you were actually talking to me.
Exactly.
Right, correct. Also, I
you
want to,
completed the
like,
joke.
small little leaving note in this post. And they bring up the idea of tunnel vision for linear people,
Too little.
which is, in their mind, just the pinpoint focus that linear people would have. And Scroy kind of contradicts that, being like, well, no, linear people aren't just completely tied onto one train of thought. They're just, like, their auxiliary thoughts are just closer to the main one, whereas they will be more spread out for lateral people.
It's a tighter
And
word.
I kind of think that tunnel vision is more a phenomenon that occurs with lateral thinkers, because a linear person would not have to do this complete cancelling out of extraneous influences to draw their line of cognition to conclusion, whereas a lateral person, in order to actually finish a train of thought, would have to cancel out a lot. So I think tunnel vision is a learned process for lateral thinkers and isn't a thing that even occurs in really linear people.
Like it's not even necessary in a linear person.
Man, I can't wait till we get to the README video of like the hexagon illustration
We'll get to
of
that.
this. Yeah. Very good stuff.
Right on.
Do we have anything
yeah.
else to say on?
Yeah, I had like a second point, but that's actually only like a bit short. It's just about like ranting, like, oh yeah, as you can see, we have like this rhetoric again, like being perpetrated, like, yeah, lateral equals smart and linear equals, dumb, think less, and so on and so on. I also like, I'm very glad, like, as time goes on, those posts, as you might have guessed from the episodes themselves, got less, and the rhetoric is less fierce, and so on and so on. And if you actually look at the post, it gets like better almost every day. And if you look like at the present now, that's literally okay. It's actually oftentimes only shit posting, so it might be not as enjoyable to read through the Reddit, but the actual posts are like nice. Let's say that at least. That's everything.
Right on.
Should we move on to the timecake post?
Yeah.
Okay. Timecake. Interaction between neurotype and temperament. A graphical overview of correlation cascade to explain partial correlations between neurotype and certain aspects of temperament. The chart will be on screen.
Of course, yeah. Sorry for the people who won't look at the screen, but
Actually, we can somewhat explain it. So we have like 4 orders of cognition, starting with neurotype, then neurotransmitter feeds into it, leading to hormone leading to the portrayed trait in character or personality. So lexicality feeds into the same channel as serotonin, which leads to both increased inverse neuroticism, so lack of neuroticism, agreeableness and conscientiousness. Inverse neuroticism, lack of neuroticism, leads to inverse volatility, lack of volatility, and inverse withdrawal, lack of withdrawal. Agreeableness leads to politeness and compassion, and conscientiousness leads to industriousness and orderliness. Both lexicality and serotonin, as well as other hormones, lead to these things in differing amounts according to Timecake. Laterality.
And apparently these numbers are all made up, by the way, so don't even worry that you're missing out on what the numbers are.
Yeah. Right. The numbers don't matter. Timecake just came up with them according to what felt right. So you might have different amounts. Yeah. So laterality along with dopamine lead to a plasticity, which leads to extroversion and openness. Extroversion leads to assertiveness and enthusiasm. Openness leads to intellect and openness to experience. A lot of those things, like in the last row, in the last step of the cognitive process, are like big 5 personality traits.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let's talk about that.
And these 2 major groups are like the lexicality and serotonin family is all labeled stability, and the laterality and dopamine family is all labeled plasticity. So there's groups. There's groups.
Yeah.
The only comment that I have about the numbers is that it seems like serotonin at 75 and lexicality at 25 are meant to add up to 100. Like was that on purpose? I don't know. And then you have laterality and dopamine doing the exact same thing, where laterality is 25 and dopamine is 75.
Right.
Is that true? Do these hormones even actually map to these
they
traits? I don't know.
Yeah, they do add up. I mean, Timecake isn't that stupid to just choose random numbers and don't have them add up. That would be a bit weird. I mean, he at least knows how to do that.
Yeah, like Timecake says he chose the numbers just because they feel right. They're bullshit. They're not based in anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but they at least add up.
But I
to
think
100.
he scaled them to add up to 100.
But do those hormones actually correlate in the literature with those parts of the big 5? Does serotonin, neurosis, and agreeableness?
Yeah, those are the papers you like.
I assumed so because he posted a fat bibliography. Like show it on screen. You would have to scroll.
Yeah, they're on screen.
Like
the big 5 types correlate to this extent to perceived personality traits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing I really like about this is kind of the things we've been bringing up between personality and neurotype before, which is that it's kind of a relation between the dry stuff and the wet stuff. So we can think of neurotype as the channels, as the pipelines that exist that lead to your behavior. And it still plays a role what flows through that. Hormone levels are way more easily alterable. Of course, neural connections are alterable, they change over time. Of course they do. But way more easily and way more short-term alterable are the amounts of hormones in your system, produced by different glands, whatever, or injected through whatever ways you choose. So this is the wet stuff. This is what leads to your personality projection or whatever, and then there is the underlying structure, which is more determined by neurotype. And I think this is a nice illustration of how that works. Even though I don't agree with the numbers, and I think parts of this are bullshit, kind of. Because why does lexicality lead to compassion? I don't think that's right. And I don't think laterality leads to assertiveness. That also feels completely reversed.
Yeah, that I have weird feels about that. Well, if he's to be believed, only 1 part in 25 of assertiveness matters for
Right,
laterality,
but that still means that assertiveness, on average, is somewhat correlated with laterality, and I think it is on average somewhat correlated with linearity. So laterality should lead to inverse assertiveness, no matter how weakly.
Yeah. And I'm also seeing all of a sudden that we've accidentally snuck in a chart that says that laterality is highly correlated with intellect because of the things.
Yeah, no, I was going to bring that up, but yes.
Of the things that are in the laterality camp, you have 1 part in 25 for assertiveness, 4 for enthusiasm, 5 for openness to experience, and 15 for intellect.
Yeah.
What is that?
Pancake being an analyst boy, so I don't want to infer bias, but yeah.
Methinks the lady fillets herself too much. Man, I thought we were going to see the last of these, but it's just going to keep sneaking back into our lives, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of.
It is. I'm kind of fine with this because this is obviously like these were papers published on Big Five, so this is probably IQ measured intellect, which I do think correlates to laterality, because laterality is a thing you would need to solve these kinds of different things happening here. What could this system cause? Kind of problems.
Yeah.
So I do think laterality somewhat correlates to IQ intellect. I just don't think it correlates to the societally perceived notion of intellect.
Yeah. And in case people haven't listened to our entire backlog, I went on a little rant about how the IQ system is racist bullshit. You can watch more about it for like an hour and a half in a video by YouTube's Shaun, if you really care. I won't rehash that here. You have your homework. You get at it.
Yeah. Didn't we talk about this like in the second podcast or something? I think we
I think
mentioned
so.
it too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can
If
remember
that is false, it will be on screen.
In my back of my mind.
And his name is Shaun C.
But I think you're right. I think it's the second episode. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Should we talk more about this? I don't think so, right? We can't talk about that.
I don't know. Does anyone else have any other points?
I mean, I kind of like the little sum up in the bottom left corner of like initially postulated correlations. It's at least phrased in there that like there are light correlations that are just being suggested, like in a feel free to disagree with me kind of way.
Yeah, no, Timekick is good on that. Definitely. Like, this is his ideas on what neurotyping might lead to in his personal experience, along with these papers, which also have, like, ideas of, for example, intellect that not everybody probably shares. One big thing I would disagree with Timekick on is, like, the lexicality leading to compassion thing seems weird, but even more so, laterality leading to assertiveness, because in my experience, linearity much more leads to assertiveness.
Yeah, just look at...
So therefore, laterality leading to inverse assertiveness.
Yeah. Some of the examples of very linear people that stand out to me in media, they tend to be fairly assertive people, like on average. Yeah. Maybe that's a stereotype, but like that's my gist.
Yeah, but again, I like this idea of adding the dry stuff to the wet stuff. Being like, okay, these are the channels and they flow into it as much as what flows through them. If anyone wants to call me out on this in the comment, I know that's not how brain works. I know the neurotransmitters don't like flow through the neurons.
Yeah.
Of course, that's bullshit. Like, that's not what I mean, you idiot, you fool, you troglodyte. It's just, this is the more pre-shaped structure, the thing that takes more time to influence, whereas the thing that is in homeostasis throughout the body is a lot easier to change. So these are like the acting particles, and then there is a superstructure which influences how those acting particles act. And having these kind of superimposed systems is a good idea of like categorizing cognition in my mind.
Do we have any other reactions to?
I don't think so. Guessing
it's
from the notes, no. Okay, so we just go
it's
to the
something
next
more
one.
to look at on your own time.
Yeah, it's probably if you
I've got
self-investigate
one.
like the sources. I guess the sources are like quite interesting. I don't think they're like very boring and dry. I think you could learn something from it.
Yeah,
already.
that's probably worth looking at. I did have one other reaction to what things got grouped with what. I just feel like I've been dominating the podcast the entire time because I have been.
Well, then we can just move on. You and just let you shut up.
It's just
Welcome
that,
to
it's just that,
Podcast Tower Cancels.
I know a person who's very, very lateral, who has the least openness to new experiences, and then I know another person who's quite lateral who has the most openness to new experiences. So I feel like in my own life, there's almost no correlation there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one, I think I probably do this because it requires reading, and because what this
the last
is
one, isn't it?
is how different neurotypes write Reddit comments. 100% accurate from my observations.
I love these posts.
Yeah, I'm just going to read this out because
These are a lot of fun.
it's because of the complaints. So what we have here is basically the neurotype is there's the neurotype S is, so it's 16 types arranged as is. The y-axis is changing attitude, and the y-x-axis is going for content. So what the content's about, and attitude is obviously it's not a real axis. It's just descriptions per row, but you know what
the uppermost row being smart asses, the second most uppermost row is reasonable dicks, the second lowermost row is whining bitches, the lowermost row is too normy for crap, the first column is data vomit, the second column is pretentious claims, the third column is weird metaphors, and the fourth column is incoherent rambling.
So in conclusion, for example, me, human calculator, I would be smart as only having data vomit in my Reddit comments. So you have that sorted.
I propose that, like class specting, you say you are a Y of X, so you are a smart ass of data vomit. I am a reasonable dick of weird metaphors.
Well, I don't think I would use off to describe that relation.
A reasonable dick of incoherent rambling, but I think it's an even more it's even more interesting to see those things in coalescence into one thing. Like, it's very interesting to think about reasonable incoherent rambling.
Well, actually, you have to get how different neurotypes write Reddit comments, and although you don't write Reddit comments, so you can't actually comment on it. Okay.
True. Reddit is awful. You should never be there.
If you want a new type example of this, EGAG is definitely a smartass incoherent rambling. If you've ever read his replies, like one of his more recent ones was like really, really fucking long and just going on and on and on. Like,
well, I think the smartest, like the few pretentious points I do have come from me being a smartass. I'm sorry, I can't help it. That's just my nature.
Yeah.
But I can see where that would come from. And data vomit, well, I just do that. I usually don't like rambling, and certainly not incoherently.
Right.
So if I ramble, it has to be like stand out of so much data that's basically data vomit, not actually a ramble.
You lean on the data vomit more so.
Yeah, so actually it's not that bad. So it's actually accurate for me. Pretentious claims where when I does data vomit, usually that aren't like claims. And weird metaphors, maybe that could be. Yeah, weird metaphors could be in there just because, metaphors are like a powerful source of expressing yourself.
Right.
I feel like this also like has a lot of application to like where you are within a square, because like I feel like I'm pretty close to the edge, so I'm a reasonable dick who uses a lot of weird metaphors, but also makes a lot of pretentious claims.
Well, actually, wait,
It's a
hold on a
double
second. What
whammy.
about what about technicians? They're reasonable, but they also do data vomit. I find it very interesting
Mhm.
to have somebody data vomiting and still be reasonable.
That makes sense in my it makes sense to me what they mean by these terms, and I think at some points they're badly chosen. Like, I don't like the whining bitches part. I can understand bitching for contemplative, understanding externalist and impressionist. That
Oh
makes
yes,
sense.
absolutely.
I don't like the whining part. I think that kind of poisons the image you would have of that kind of response.
Well, I think part
Yeah.
of that is just that this is like sort of a meme post. That's why it's whining bitches, and the one underneath that is too normie for crap.
I really like this post because it is a meme post in form, but not in content. A lot like the Moncap circle theory, which has autism on all four corners.
Yeah.
It looks like a shit post, but there is genuine truth behind that. And I think this is genuinely like a comprehensive post of modes of interaction that different neurotypes would have, which is obviously just stochastic, as we already said. Like, a personality doesn't perfectly correlate to cognition. Obviously it doesn't. But you can still draw trends of how people of this cognitive style usually would act. And also, again, Moncap's charts of these are the fields of occupation that certain types are drawn to. These are the types of writing that certain types are drawn to. And from my personal experience, like, these are pretty spot on. As I said, like, I would substitute whining bitches for just bitching. And I would substitute the purple column weird metaphors for anecdotes.
Oh, okay.
Because I think purple column people are very drawn to, like, okay, this is my life story. These are the people I've known. We've talked in the last episode about this one very overseery post, which was also like, okay, these are the things I have learned. These are the things I've done in school. Like, it's very a personal experience kind of portrayal of events as they are.
Yeah, like even within this very episode, how many times have I referenced people in my life to make points?
Yeah.
In all of the episodes, you mean? In this very
Yes.
podcast?
Wait,
All the time?
Yes.
well, actually, I have to say the listener might be like confused why we are giving like charity to this like Reddit post and not completely dunking on it, but actually, yeah, we are like agreeing. Yeah, this is kind of good.
Wait, so
Yeah, totes.
does this mean that I have incoherent anecdotes?
Yeah, kind of.
Rambly anecdotes?
Also, another thing I want to actually just say, I just interjected because I thought it was funny. I actually don't know about the two normie for crap. If you like actually had like people on there, maybe I'd say change it. But I can't be like in position to say either keep it or change it because I have no idea about it.
That's another thing we have to consider. Like, this is talked about comments as they are real things, but like a piece of text would be first of all what the person who wrote put into it, and then what the person who read it got out of it. So this is the understanding of a fascinator of what these things are. So I think it's very reasonable for a fascinator to think of bookkeeper level-headed clisile pure instinct comments as normie-ish. I think a top row person would have a different understanding of norminess from most other people.
Yeah, this is before the wave of all the neurotypes as seen from the perspective of this particular type.
Yeah.
Which, boy, those are going to be fun to dig through.
Yeah.
I remember that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm 100 years old. This was a long, long time ago.
In a galaxy far, far away.
Yes.
So yeah, what I'm saying is I definitely relate strongly to reasonable, incoherent rambling and being a dick about it.
That's true.
Okay, actually, now this concludes actually everything because we did the neurotyping MBTI and enneagram.
This is the last post.
Yeah, we made that at the beginning. So actually, we're done now, which I
2.5
got kind of
hours
surprised that we actually got through.
Yeah, I feel like the ending snuck up on us, even though we're at our usual 2.5 hours.
Oh fuck, wow, this felt so much shorter.
Because we had a guest.
Maybe we should shorten. Maybe we should shorten to like 6 or 5 posts.
I mean, we already shortened the list of posts twice.
I mean, we could ask the viewers if they want to, or if they actually enjoy it like this.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Yeah, I feel like
it's
by
just...
now we have enough momentum to determine or to give them a representative sample. Like, hey, you listened to most of these episodes, hopefully. Are they too long? Should have asked this at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah.
All right.
So anything Exy would have had to have plugged is on screen now and also in the video description. If there's nothing, well, there's nothing now. Cool, good. Yeah. I'm glad someone finally explained MBTI to us because it would definitely come back, like people drawing connections to it and such.
I feel like there's got to be some singular MBTI fan in the audience who's like, oh, finally, they stopped dunking on MBTI and actually listen to what it's really about. And then we never talk about it again.
Oh yeah, that could actually be feel like unlucky that could actually be the case because I don't think we will like put another like 3 posts in here because we select those before like pre-select them, and if you say okay we have done this like 5 times already, like this linear laterality thing, like the stereotypes about them, then we just won't get them into the podcast because that's boring. It isn't like new and doesn't get any content anymore.
Yeah.
Only new things.
And we are bored too of that topic.
We're partly trying to do like a comprehensive listing of the development over time, which necessarily means that we're talking about only the like new developments and actual pushing forward of the medium and the idea and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Even if you push like the propaganda that we should include this like a 7th time, we won't do it.
Yeah.
Because obviously there will be people like thinking they developed a new idea. That people will have come up with something separately, but just because they didn't read the previous post, which obviously you shouldn't. Don't read the fucking Reddit, you idiot. Why would you ever do that? But at the same time, it doesn't make sense for us when we are explaining this in retrospect to explain things twice just because 2 people came up with this independently delayed in time. We'll just explain the first.
Man.
Well,
Just sitting back and looking over our body of work. This is cool. All right.
I think we can call this like finish, right?
Yeah, I think this is this one.